Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is having a good Friday, had a good day, a good week, all of that good stuff. All glory and praises to the Most High for another day, getting me through the day, week, everything. For me, it's been a very, very rough week, um, and it is extremely hot out here in the desert. Okay, my sound is good. It is extremely hot out here in the desert. Today was 107 degrees, and I think next week we're gonna hit 111 degrees. I think it's gonna top that, and we're still in June, not officially summer yet. So I am dreading whatever next month in August will bring, but I know it is hot. I've been down all week with headaches and dizzy spells because of the heat. I don't think I'll ever get used to this dry heat out here in the desert. So, God willing, this will be my last summer out here. We'll see. I don't know what the Lord has in store for me, but we'll see. Again, thank you for tuning in. Do hit the like button, share, subscribe, and if you would like to know when I will be going live again in the future, you can hit the notification bell, okay? This is part two of the book of Daniel, and we are going to get into Daniel's visions, the beasts, the horns, all of that. So we're going to try to wrap up the book of Daniel in this live, okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and dive in. I was going to go live tomorrow, but I think I'm just going to stay in and rest and catch up on some sleep. So wanted to go live this evening. So all right, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go ahead and dive right into it. And we are in the book of Daniel. Okay, we're on chapter 7. So hold on just a second. Let's see how this goes. It's a delay as usual. Okay, once it shows up, I see it showing up, I'll go ahead and get started on my phone. Just want to make sure it's doing the right thing. All right, there it goes. Okay. All right, so let's get started. I'm reading from the King James Version as always. Daniel chapter 7, verse 1. It says, in the first year of of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Okay, so Daniel's dreams and visions were very special. They were revelations from God. And the dream he had was not an ordinary dream. Okay, verse 2. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. Now, the four winds of heaven mentioned here in verse 2, they were like a cosmic forces, I guess you can say. And the great sea is not the Mediterranean Sea, but the oceans of population upon the earth. Okay. Now in Revelation chapter 13, either John, the Apostle John, or Satan stood up on the seashore to behold the great scarlet beast with 7 heads and 10 horns that came up out of the sea of earth's people, like in this case. There is also, when you're reading the book of Daniel and Revelation, you'll see there's some kind of kinship between the two books. Okay, verse 3. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Now, this is the first beast, which is the lion. Okay, the 4 beasts represent kingdoms. Babylon identifies with the beast, the king of animals. The change that came upon the beast, a man's heart was given to it, reference to the event of Nebuchadnezzar's madness and his restoration and everything, which we went over in part 1. Verse 5. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour such flesh. Now this is the second beast, which is the bear, which came after the first beast, was the empire that succeeded Babylon. The pagan empires applied to the second beast, which is the Medo-Persian. The Medo-Persian Empire was one empire, not two, and referenced the 2 beasts. The fulfillment is given in Daniel chapter 5, verse 31. Now, Darius the Mede took the kingdom, indicating that there was just one kingdom. Okay, verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Now this is the leopard, okay? The beast having 4 wings represented its rapid moving, meaning it moved real fast. Now Alexander's empire quickly came to power. The Macedonian Greek Empire are the 4 heads, okay? The 4 generals of Alexander the Great founded 4 different empires upon the territory Alexander conquered, okay? And we'll get into that in the next chapter, in Daniel chapter 8, okay? Verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Now the 4th beast referenced the empire, the Roman Empire. Okay, now the little horn is a little kingdom, a horn of the 4th beast, and rooted up 3 of the first horns. Okay. And can be found upon the nations of the Latin Empire. Now, this kingdom was different than the other 10. It had a life and soul to itself, and a mouth and eyes. Now, the eyes, showed that it was a seer, a mouth, speaking great things, changing times and laws, and was a prophet and king. Now, the seer, prophet, and king is the Church of Rome. Okay. Now, the Exarchate, I think that's how you say it, of Ravenna, also known as the Exarchate of Italy, or the administrative district, the Kingdom of Lombardy, and the Dutch of Rome. Now, the 3 horns were rooted up by the little horn. These were the 3 horns that were rooted up by the little horn. Okay, these 3 became the patrimony of Peter, making the Roman Church a small temporal kingdom. The armed force, the papal, I think that's how you say it, guards, was established, and papacy later claimed authority over the kings of the earth. One pope presuming to crown Charlemagne, the king of the Holy Roman Empire, on Christmas Day in 800 AD. So that is just a little history, okay? All right, let's go to verse 9. It says, I beheld till the thorns were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. This throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. The fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives prolonged for a season and a time. Now, this is the prophecy of the eternal judgment, which you can read in Revelation chapter 20, the great white throne judgment. The Almighty God, and in Revelation chapter 20, it is Christ who sits on this throne. The result of the early church's acceptance of our Lord as deity, to whom the Father has committed the judgment of all men. The kings of the earth, all of them, the great harlot, which is the apostate religion, and Satan himself, all three of them shall perish in the lake of fire. Verse 13, we're in Daniel chapter 7. Verse 13, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. This relates to the setting up or establishment of the kingdom of our Lord Jesus Christ. Ancient of Days is God Almighty with the clouds of heaven, corresponds with Christ's ascension to the Father to receive the kingdom that he was taken up, which you can read in Acts chapter 1, okay, where it says came with the clouds. Christ, the second coming. Ascension to heaven was to receive the kingdom. The Great Commission in Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 through 20. When Christ gave that commission, all authority in heaven and upon earth were in possession of Christ at the time. Okay. Daniel chapter 2, which I read in the last, in part 1, is parallel to the visions here, and they connect. The kingdom was to be established in the days of those kings, not the days after the kings were destroyed. Okay. Now, we're going into verse 15, and this is the interpretation of the vision I just read. Okay. Verse 15. Hold on, let me check my sound. It's parallel. Okay, there we go. All right, verse 15. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by, and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. Daniel was grieved of the terrifying times ahead. So this is a vision he had. One of them that stood by, where it says here in the verses I just read, this was a heavenly being, an angel, who gave the interpretation. All right. Verse 17. These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Now, kings are kingdoms or world governments, and the number 4 in Hebrew refers to the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall possess the kingdom, where it mentions here in the verses, in verse 18. This will take place in the days of the 4th great beast, the days of the Roman Empire. Okay, let's go to Colossians. I'm going to look at a couple verses. Colossians chapter 1, and I'm going to read verse 13. Great. Why did it do that? Okay, let me see what's going on. Okay, let me see what's going on, because now it does not want me to look at the King James Bible. Isn't that something? Okay, let me try something else. Okay. I'm going to look at another Bible source, because apparently that one won't let me. Okay, I'm going to go to Colossians chapter 1, verse 13. I'm going to try it on a different website. All right, let me share my screen again. That was weird. Okay, let's see how this works. All right, so I have to try a different app, because the King James one I was using suddenly just stopped working. All right, Colossians chapter 1, verse 13. It says, "Who hath delivered us from the power of darkness, and hath translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son." Baptism admits one into the kingdom. Okay. Now I'm going to go to 2 Peter. I'm going to have to type this in. Oh, goodness. 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 10 and 11. Okay. And it says, "Wherefore the rather, brethren, give diligence to make our calling and election sure. For if ye do these things, ye shall never fall." Okay. In verse, hold on, I have to type it. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 11 says, "For so an entrance shall be ministered unto you abundantly into the everlasting kingdom of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ." Faithfulness admits one into the eternal kingdom. So a lot of people, this almost kind of relates to the once saved, always saved. That is not true. Yes, baptism admits one into the kingdom, but faithfulness admits one into the eternal kingdom. Okay? All right. So we're going back to the text. I'm in Daniel chapter. Oh, what chapter am I in? Chapter 7. All right. And I am on verse 19. Okay. All right. Verse 19. I hope y'all can see that, because it is kind of small. I do not know what happened to the other website I was using. Let me see. Yeah. Okay, now I can't use it. That's weird. All right, verse 19. It says, "Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom." Now the saints of the Most High were confused with the Jewish people, During the times of the fourth beast, with the 10 horns and the little horn, made war against God's people. The Jews were not meant. Okay. Now, during these times, Israel rebelled against God and suffered punishment. The saints referred to as Christians, servants of Jesus Christ. Now, the fourth beast was diverse from the others, which we'll read here in just a minute. The little horn persecuted God's people and became a factor on earth until the time of judgment. Now, in verse 22, the possession of the kingdom is not the establishment of the kingdom or the entry of saints into the kingdom. It is reference to that point in the future, which you can read in Revelation chapter 11. All right, verse 23. It says, "Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them. And he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times, and the dividing of times." The saints existed throughout the period of the little horn, which is part of the fourth beast. Now, in verse 23, where it talks about diverse or diversity. Now, 1, the little horn is a religious kingdom, 2 horns of a lamb, which you can read in Revelation chapter 13. 2, it shall prevail mightily to the end. And 3, it will change laws and time and in regards to sacred things. Changes were made in the Lord's Supper and 2 central ordinances in the Christian religion. 4, it became a terrible persecuting power of God's true people and formed alliances with the kings of the earth and etc. Times and times, where it mentions in verse 25, times and dividing of times. 1, you can read this in Revelation chapter 6. Christian martyrs, a little time. Revelation chapter 12, the hatred of Satan for God's church. And again in Revelation chapter 12, God promised to nourish his church in the wilderness. In Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 through 20. And Revelation chapter 12, verse 14. And God will nourish and protect his church from Satan's hatred. And the little horn, identified with the fourth beast, is the whole Christian dispensation. You can read that, Revelation chapter 13, verse 5. And as long as saints suffer with Christ, they also reign with him. So we have to endure just for a little while, Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't know if anyone is watching it or just listening in, but I don't know what happened with my other app. I'm going to try to use another app. I'm going to finish out this chapter because this is small. Okay. Verse 26, and I'll read the rest of it. It says, "But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, cogitations, I think that's what it says, much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart." In verse 26, where it says, "But the judgment shall sit." Now, God's final to all misdeeds of men and of nations. It is necessary in the mercy and providence of God that Adam's race upon earth shall be allowed until the full number of the redeemed have come into service of God through Christ. Now, in Hebrews chapter 6, verse 2, it talks about where there shall be a final judgment day, and it's one of the foundational doctrines of Christianity. The judgment day is when God will cast evil out of his universe. Satan, all of the beasts, false prophets, and immoral religion shall be cast alive into the lake of fire that burneth brimstone. You can read Revelation chapters 18 through 20. And in Matthew chapter 25, God spoke of the final judgment. Okay? All right, let's go on to Daniel chapter 8. I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick because I'm going to see if I can find another app, Bible app. Hold on just a second. That was very weird. It just stopped in the middle of me going to when I was getting ready to go from chapter to chapter. Okay, I found one. Let me make it large. Hold on. Oh goodness, I don't know if this is King James or not. Let's see. And if I can't find anything, then we'll just stick to what we've been. I hope this is King James. Okay, I'm gonna give this one here a shot. We'll see how this one goes. All right, let me share my screen again. Okay. Oh no. Okay, I don't think it's gonna let me share that one. Hold on. All right, let's see. If not, I'll go back to the other Bible app I was using. That way y'all can read along with me. Let me see. Okay. Yep, it's not going to allow me to share it. Okay, I'm going to try something else. That is so weird. Yeah, it's saying it's forbidden now. Okay. KJV Bible. Hold on, I'm trying to find another one. And I'm not. So as much as I would love to jump from chapter to chapter, and because I would have to stop and type every single time, I don't know if I'm going to, because I like to cross-reference scripture, but whatever is going on that is not allowing me to do it, or the app I was using is just messed up or whatever, unfortunately, I can't. But I will provide the scripture and you all can feel free to go check it out. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again and we'll just continue. Gotta love these errors, don't you? Okay. All right. We are in Daniel chapter 8. And I'm going to do my best to finish out this book. I don't know how to make these other ads go away. Okay. All right. Look like it's working so far. Here we go. Let me see. I'm going to try to make the screen a little bit bigger. That's the best I can do for now. Let's see. Okay. All right. Here we go. Daniel chapter 8, verse 1. In the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. Okay. Oh, verse 2. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of, I think it's Ulai or Ulay, not sure. But Daniel was not physically in Shushan, but he was in Babylon. Okay, now we're talking about the ram and the rough goat vision here. Okay, verse 3. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had two horns, and the two horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. Okay. Now the ram is Medo Persia, which is one kingdom, but two elements, which is Median and Persian. Okay. The bear had three ribs in his mouth, and the ram was pushing in three different directions. The bear rising up on one side is the same as the ram's horn rising higher than the first one. And the Persian power will dominate later in this kingdom. Okay? Verse 5. And as I was considering, behold, an he goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. The great kingdom of Alexander was represented as the first as belly and thighs of brass, and the second by a leopard with four wings. Now, the four wings stand for swiftness, because remember, they move pretty quick with the wings. Here, the he goat didn't touch the ground due to his speed, and he came from the west. The great central he goat stand for Alexander himself. It was broken when it was strong, and Alexander suddenly died from drinking in a fever, something like that. And it was at its height in 323 BC. Okay. Now the four horns that followed Alexander were fulfilled by the division of the world empire into four different parts. One, Cassandra, controlled Macedonia and Greece. Lysimachus, I think that's how you say the name, controlled Thrace and Asia Minor. And Ptolemy, the first, took control of Egypt, and four, Seleucus, I think it's Seleucus, I believe that's how you say it, controlled Syria and Babylonia. Okay, now toward the four winds of heaven mentioned in verse 8, the little horn arose from them to challenge the Jewish religion in the times of the Maccabees. All of Alexander's empire disappeared into the dominions of the Roman Empire. Okay. And as we're reading this, you kind of see how it kind of ties up and leads up to what's going on today in a way. All right. Verse 9. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. And by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of the sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression. And it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under feet? And he said unto me, Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Okay. All right. Now let's look into this. Now, one, the calamity fell upon Israel through transgression, which you can read here in Daniel chapter 8, which we're talking about now in verse 12. This was Israel's punishment for their sinful rebellion. Now, two, the punishment will be limited and the sanctuary will be cleansed. Right here in verse 14. The glorious land referenced Palestine, which in verse 9. The Prince of Hosts referenced God himself in verse 11. He is the owner of the sanctuary and possessor of the continued burnt offerings. Now in 2,300 days, the 2,300 days is a symbol. If the 2,300 days were reduced to years, they add up to 3 months and a little over 6 years. God's judgments upon pagans with Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 4, 7 years of famine under Ahab upon Israel, punishment on Israel for David's numbering of the people in 2 Samuel chapter 24. These were punishments lasting a full 7 years. The 2,300 days being a little over 6 years, that it won't reach 7 years, the full divine judgment against Israel. The 2,300 days seem to refer to when the temple was desecrated by pagan sacrifices. Malachi, in Malachi, the priesthood was cursed by God himself for lapses. Okay. All right, let's keep going. I'm on verse 15. It says, And it came to pass when even I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, I'm going to say Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So he came near where I stood. And when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed, the end shall be. Now, this is the second interpretation of the vision, okay? Now, this was the first naming of a holy angel in the entire Bible, supposedly, Gabriel. Not the mention of an angel, just the name of an angel, okay, who also appeared to Mary and Zacharias. The vision referred to the end time, setting up the Messianic kingdom and the final execution of the great judgment upon all mankind. Now, Christ making the end of the Israelite nation a type of final judgment, which is in Matthew chapter 24, the end of indignation against Israel. And in Acts chapter 2, Peter also designated the entire church age as the last days as well. And where it says, for at the time appointed, the end shall be, in verse 19, Paul declared that God had appointed a day he would judge the world. And he said that in Acts chapter 17. You can read that in verse 31. All right, let's keep going. We are at verse 20. The ram which thou sawest, having 2 horns, are the kings of Media and Persia. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. And in the latter time of the kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall use craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Now in verse 22, where it says, but not in his power, God gave this evil man power to punish in Israel. In verse 25, where it says, but he shall be broken without hand, Antiochus was defeated by Judas Maccabeus, I think that's how you say it, which may have overcome that evil power if he could pay his troops. He didn't have the money and tried to plunder the pagan temple of Artemis at Elymas and failed. Historians at that time viewed his death caused as madness afflicted by a divine hand. Now in verse 23 here, where it says, when the transgressors are come to the full, transgression of Israel, it is transgression of Israel that led to God's permission for an evil power as Antiochus to rise up. Okay, I'm going to read the last 2 verses. Verse 26, and the vision of the evening and the morning which was told is true. Wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. Afterward I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. Now where it says shut up the vision, that was, keeping a record of it to be presented and fulfillment might be noted. Daniel didn't claim to understand the vision he recorded, and God spoke through a lot of prophets as well. A lot of prophets didn't really understand, the visions or anything that was given, any words that were given to them by God. A lot of them didn't understand. Okay. We are in Daniel chapter 9, and we're going to get into the vision of 70 weeks and Daniel's prayer and confession, and we're just going to keep going. Although I don't understand what's going on with the websites here, so oh well. All right, Daniel chapter 9, verse 1. It says, in the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, I think that's how you say it, of the seed of Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans. In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. Daniel was a prophet who desired to know God's will and paid attention, giving diligently to the prophets before him. And then you can read Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 10, where it talks about, where Daniel, you'll see where Daniel read Jeremiah's prophecy regarding the 70 years. Okay. God promised Israel to restore them to Palestine after the 70 years were ended. Daniel considered praying to God with the most earnest supplications and petitions that God would fulfill his glorious promises to his people. Prayers of God's people are a constant necessity to receive those great blessings that he already promised. We have to stay in prayer even to this day. The books mentioned in verse 2 showed that the Old Testament books still existed at that time. Later, Daniel mentions the curse, which was from Deuteronomy chapter 28. Okay, let's keep going. We are on verse 3 of Daniel chapter 9. Okay, it says, "And I set my face unto the Lord God to seek by prayer and supplications with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. And I prayed unto the Lord my God and made my confession and said, O Lord, the great and dreadful God, keeping the covenant and mercy to them that love him and to them that keep his commandments. We have sinned and have committed iniquity and have done wickedly and have rebelled, even by departing from thy precepts and from thy judgments. Neither have we hearkened unto thy servants, the prophets, which spake in thy name to our kings, our princes, and our fathers, and to all the people of the land." Now, this was Daniel's prayer and confession. Daniel confessed Israel's sins, wickedness, and transgression and rebellion against God. Daniel also included himself as a sinner with Israel. It was the general wickedness of Israel that didn't lessen during the 70 years of their captivity that moved Daniel to prayer. Daniel did not doubt the promise of God, but his concern appeared to be the blessings God had promised after their return. Priests were not mentioned because when Daniel was written, the book of Daniel, in Babylon, before the captivity ended, there was no priesthood of God's people in Babylon. Now, Antiochus Epiphanes, I think, that was the Maccabean period. All right. Verse 7. O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of faces, as at this day, to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, through all the countries whither thou hast driven them, because of their trespass that they have trespassed against thee. O Lord, to us belongeth confusion of face, to our kings, to our princes, and to our fathers, because we have sinned against thee. To the Lord our God, being mercies and forgivenesses, though we have rebelled against him. Neither have we obeyed the voice of the Lord our God, to walk in his laws, which he set before us by his servants the prophets. Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him. The curse and oath mentioned in verse 11. You can read that in Leviticus chapter 26 and Deuteronomy chapter 28. Verse 12. And he confirmed his words, which he spake against us and against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil, for under the whole heaven hath not been done as hath been done upon Jerusalem, as it is written in the law of Moses. All this evil is come upon us. Yet made we not our prayer before the Lord our God, that we might turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth. Therefore hath the Lord watched upon the evil and brought it upon us. For the Lord our God is righteous in all his works, which he doeth, for we obeyed not his voice. Daniel's concern was focused on the state of Jerusalem. Now, where it says in verse 12, under the whole heaven, it's the kind of ruthless destruction that had been poured out upon Jerusalem. Daniel's prayer had nothing to do with the Maccabean War. Antiochus did not destroy the city of Jerusalem, but he desecrated the temple. Okay? Verse 15. And now, O Lord our God, that hast brought thy people forth out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand, and hast gotten thee renown. As at this day we have sinned, we have done wickedly. O Lord, according to all thy righteousness, I beseech thee, let thine anger and thy fury be turned away from thy city, Jerusalem, thy holy mountain, because of our sins, and for the iniquities of our fathers. Jerusalem and thy people are become a reproach to all that are about us. Now therefore, O our God, hear the prayer of thy servant and his supplications, and cause thy face to shine upon thy sanctuary that is desolate, for the Lord's sake. O my God, incline thine ear and hear, open thine eyes and behold our desolations, and the city which is called by thy name. For we do not present our supplications before thee for our righteousness, but for thy great mercies. O Lord, hear, O Lord, forgive. O Lord, hearken and do. Defer not for thine own sake. O my God, for thy city and thy people are called by thy name. Daniel's final clauses is in this amazing prayer. Four things I'm going to name. 1, the previous blessings of God are mentioned. 2, the persistent sins of the people are repeatedly confessed. 3, it is admitted that Israel's punishment was of their own sinful deeds and entirely their fault. And 4, no one's righteousness from God's people or Daniel are alleged as grounds for the mentioning of our righteousness, but for thy great mercies in verse 18 is not pleaded for hope. Okay? Verse 20. We're getting to the 70 weeks of years. Verse 20. And whilst I was speaking and praying and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of my God. Yea, whilst I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation. And he informed me and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I am now come forth to give thee skill and understanding. At the beginning of thy supplications, the commandment came forth, and I am come to show thee, for thou art greatly beloved. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. Gabriel, an angel, interrupted Daniel's prayer. And in verse 23, where it says to understand the vision or the matter, was applied to the previous vision Daniel previously written. The prophecy of the 70 weeks was about to be imparted to Daniel by Gabriel wasn't a vision. It was in real life. Now, in verse 21, where it says the evening oblation was the evening of sacrifices, but at that time, there were no evening sacrifices because Israel was held captive in Babylon. Daniel still observed the time of the evening sacrifice, engaging in prayer, as we just read. Okay? All right, I'm going to read the rest of this chapter. Verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. And that is the rest of Daniel chapter 9. Now, the appearance of Christ in the flesh, his death, and the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans in 70 AD is prophesied. This is indicated by the words of Jesus Christ, who applied the abomination spoken by Daniel as an event that would occur in the siege of Jerusalem, as prophesied by Christ in Matthew chapter 24, Mark 13, and Luke chapter 21. Now, Christ's warning to Christians is in Matthew chapter 24, verses 15 through 31. Christ related this vision to the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans. The destruction was done within the 70 weeks of this vision. Now, the 6 things to be accomplished within 70 weeks, which is mentioned in verse 24 here. Now, 1, finish transgression. Now, to finish transgression, Christ's coming was foretold. Israel was condemned, and their city was destroyed, and they were scattered all over the world for their rejection of the Messiah. 2, make an end of sins. Now, to make an end of sins was accomplished when Christ condemned sin in the flesh. Forgiveness of sins was in Christ. 3, to make reconciliation for iniquity, which is to pardon, blot out sin offering, to forgive. The atonement for human transgression wrought by Jesus Christ on Calvary, which resulted reconciliation of men to God, could occur. This restored the broken relationship between God and man. 4, to bring everlasting righteousness. Christ is the righteousness of God only. Jesus brought righteousness from above. 5, seal up the vision and prophecy. Now, to seal up the vision and prophecy, some of the 333 prophecies in the Old Testament pointed to the coming of Christ and were fulfilled in his life, death, and resurrection, etc. And 6, anoint the Most High, anoint the Most Holy, mentioned in verse 24. To anoint the Most Holy, this is a reference to Christ. This phrase applied to an individual, the Messiah, the Most Holy Christ. God promised that the city shall be built again, mentioned in verse 25. The 70 weeks were not to pass before the Messiah came. In verse 26, the 69th week takes us to the Prince, who is Christ. What was spoken of in past tense, the prophecy that Christ spoke, was as something that was already done. This was why the destruction of Jerusalem was to be accomplished within 70 weeks. In verse 27, Christ will make the covenant with many for 1 week, indicating a 7-year period, but limited. The Messiah was cut off in the midst of the week. The flood and war are prophecies of the great tribulation that overwhelmed Jerusalem at the time of her doom. Woo! All right. That was Daniel chapter 9. We are on to Daniel chapter 10. We're almost there. We're getting into the vision of the glory of God. So, Daniel chapter 10, verse 1. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel. Hold on, to check my sound, make sure I'm still good. Okay. All right, I'm going to start over. Daniel chapter 10, verse 1. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar. And the thing was true, but the time appointed was long, and he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. Daniel's fasting was a reason for mourning. The restoration of the temple stopped and was Daniel's concern. And you can read that in the book of Ezra, the first 3 chapters. Verse 4. And in the 4th and 20th day of the 1st month, neither did I anoint myself at all till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. And in the 4th and 20th day of the 1st month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel, I think that's how you say it. Then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. His body also was like a beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. And I, Daniel alone saw the vision. For the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quake fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength. Yet I heard the voice of his words, and when I heard the voice of his words, then was I in a deep sleep on my face, and my face toward the ground. Now, Hiddekel, I think that's how you say it in verse 4. This is the Tigris River. Tigris River. The man mentioned in verse 5 and 6, in those 2 verses, points to Christ himself, according to Revelation chapter 1, verse 13. John saw the glorified Christ in Revelation chapter 1. Daniel seeing the vision corresponds with Paul in Acts chapter 9. Remember that? When Christ appeared to someone, it was who Christ wanted to be seen. Like whoever he chose, that's how he appeared to someone. Daniel was probably prepared in his heart to receive a vision, but those with him were not. Hi, Joseph Bible Name. Thank you for joining me. God bless you too. Thank you for joining. I'm in Daniel chapter 10, and I am on verse 10. Okay. Let me get a sip of my water. All right, verse 10. And behold, an hand touched me, which set me upon my knees and upon the palms of my hands. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright. For unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel. For from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten myself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Now I am come to make thee understand that shall befall thy people in the latter days, for yet the vision is for many days. And when he had spoken such words unto me, I set my face toward the ground, and I became dumb. And behold, one like the similitude of the sons of men touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spake, and said unto him that stood before me, O my Lord, by the vision my sorrows are turned upon me, and I have retrained no strength. For how can the servant of this my Lord with this my Lord talk with this my Lord? For as for me, straightway there remained no strength in me, neither is there breath left in me. The work of the holy angels strive with the rulers of this world's darkness. Now, if you read Hebrews chapter 1, verse 14, it talks about the mightiest of God's angels are diligent to bring about world conditions favorable to the achievement of the purpose of God. Daniel was weak and hopeless from the appearance of the angels. Here in verse 11, however lowly the audience is made to the monarch by anyone admitted to his presence, he stands when he receives the monarch's commands. Standing implies attention. Now, where it says, for unto thee am I now sent, in verse 11 means the messenger had the authority to command Daniel in the name of God himself. Where it says in the latter days, in verse 14, that refers to the end of days. And where it says from the first day that thou didst set thine heart, prayer is heard at once, though the answer may be delayed, but it is heard. Daniel was raised with full strength and understanding, which happened when he was touched the third time in verse 18. All right, let's keep going. I'm going to read the rest of it. Verse 18. Then there came again and touched me one like the appearance of a man, and he strengthened me and said, O man greatly beloved, fear not, peace be unto thee. Be strong, yea, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened and said, let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me. Then said he, knowest thou wherefore I come unto thee? And now I will return to fight with the prince of Persia. And when I am gone forth, lo, the prince of Grecia shall come. But I will show thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth. And there is none that holdeth with me in these things, but Michael, your prince. Here's a glimpse of the unseen world. The nations of the world are being mentioned, and the extent of God's will being directed, influenced, and controlled by the mighty angels of God. Here, Michael is shown as being the guardian angels of the Jews. The idea of guardian angels for different nations are hinted early, in the Old Testament. Like in Isaiah chapter 24, God will crowd kings together like prisoners in a pit. In the assembly of gods, he gives his dissension. In the New Testament, the functions of angels includes one, they bear away the souls of the departed in death, which you could read in Luke chapter 16. They exercise diligence to watch over the little children. You can read that in Matthew chapter 18. All of the angels are engaged in the service of those who shall inherit salvation. You can read that in Hebrews chapter 1. They aid in bringing sinners in contact with the gospel. They execute the sentence of God in the destruction of sinners whose importance justifies their immediate removal from the earth. You can read that in Acts chapter 12. One of the mightiest angel, the rainbow angel of Revelation, has charge in Revelation chapter 10, has charge of maintaining an open Bible, the little book, until time shall be no more. On special occasion, when God's great prophets and teachers of the word needed special encouragement, an angel of God stood by to inform, to prophesy, and to encourage. You can read that in Acts chapter 27. Here in Daniel, the blessed angels influence human affairs through human governments to achieve God's purposes among men. All right, we have 2 more chapters to go, and then I will be done. Then I will close out the live. Is it okay to email my testimony? Yes. Yes, my email address is in my description box, right up under my profile picture. Okay. Daniel chapter 11, we're almost done, and I'm going to try to go through this pretty quick, as much as I can. All right, Daniel chapter 11, verse 1. Also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. Let me move this ad out of the way. Okay. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia, and a mighty king shall stand, that shall rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion, which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. The 3 kings in verse 2 are Cambyses, I think that's how you say it. When I was researching this, the names were so hard to pronounce, so I'm gonna do the best I can. So it's also Darius the First, Xerxes, or Xerxes. I'm not sure how to say that. The first, and the 4th is Cyrus the First, and is Xerxes is Xerxes. So I'm not sure how to say that. A king of vast wealth. Okay, the mighty king in verse 3 is Alexander the Great, and the partition of his empire is described in verse 4. The king of the south in verse 5 is Ptolemy the First, or Sorer, Sorer. I think that's how you pronounce the name. The first Egyptian king, and one of his princes is Seleucus the First, the first Syrian king. Okay. Verse 6. And in the end of years, they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement, but she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times. The king of the south's daughter in verse 6 is in reference to Bernice, daughter of Ptolemy II, or Philadelphus. She married Antiochus II. On the death of Ptolemy II, Antiochus divorced Bernice and took Laodice. I think that's how you say the name. Took that back. Laodice, Laodice. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know. Poisoned Antiochus and their son Seleucus after Callinicus, and murdered Bernice and her child, where it says he that begat her, I believe that says in verse 6. He begat her, not begat her. I can't even read my own handwriting. Okay, verse 7. But out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail, and shall also carry captives into Egypt their gods, with their princes and with their precious vessels of silver and of gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. Ptolemy III, brother of Bernice, to avenge his sister's death, invaded Syria, then ruled by Callinicus, captured Seleucia, and returned to Egypt with much spoil. A branch of her, Bernice's, roots was her brother Ptolemy III, which is mentioned here in verses 7 and 8. Verse 9. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land. Now this is Seleucus II, invaded Egypt in 242 BC, but had to retreat. Verse 10. But his sons shall be stirred up, and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up, even to his fortress. Verse 10 here, his sons, the sons of Seleucus II, were Seleucus III and Antiochus III, called the Great. Okay, verse 11, and the king of the south shall be moved with choler, and shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north, and he shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his hand. This is an allusion to the battle of Raphia. Verse 12, and when he had taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many 10,000s, but he shall not be strengthened by it. This is Ptolemy the fourth. Verse 13, for the king of the north shall return, and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches. And in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south. Also the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall fall. 12 years later, Antiochus joined with Philip of Macedon, and in an attack upon Ptolemy V, son of Ptolemy IV. Okay, verse 15. So the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount, and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand. But he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him, and he shall stand in the glorious land, which by his hand shall be consumed. Antiochus III shut up Ptolemy V in Sidon, where Ptolemy surrendered in 198 BC. And Antiochus then overran Palestine and threaten Egypt. The glorious land is Palestine. He that cometh is Antiochus III. Against him is Ptolemy V. All right. Verse 17, he shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do, and he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her, but she shall not stand on his side, neither be for him. And this is Antiochus III gave his daughter Cleopatra in marriage to Ptolemy V. Verse 18, after this shall he turn his face unto the isles, and shall take many. But a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Without his own reproach he shall cause it to turn upon him. These isles is the coastlands on the shores of the Aegean Sea. A prince for his own behalf is the Roman general Scipio. Scipio, I think that's how you say it. Verse 19, then he shall turn his face toward the fords of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. Ford of his own hand, his withdrawal to Syria. That's what that is. Verse 20, then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom. But within few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. Antiochus III was succeeded by Seleucus IV, who sent his chief minister to take charge of the temple treasures in Jerusalem. Verse 22, and with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken, yea, also the prince of the covenant. And after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall become strong with the small people. He shall enter peaceably, even upon the fattest places of the province. And he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey and spoil and riches. Yea, he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up in battle with a very great and mighty army, but he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. Yea, they that feed the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. And both of these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed. Now in verse 22, where it says the prince of the covenant is the Jewish high priest, Onias III, who was disposed by Antiochus in favor of Onias's brother Jason, who became a full-fledged ally of the corrupt Antiochus. Now, the great prophecy is the development of the pagan world powers in their opposition to God and his holy worship. The features of the prophecy are lust, murder, greed, the cunning, deceit, falsehood, treachery, violations of trust, and breaking of treaties, and the mass extermination of populations and self-glorification, disregard of all sacred things, and hatred of both God and man. This happened to God's first Israel, and this prophecy, Daniel offers it as a prophecy of what shall happen to the second Israel, leading up to the resurrection of the dead and the final judgment. Okay? Verse 28, we're getting there, y'all. Verse 28. Then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant, and he shall do exploits and return to his own land. At the time appointed, he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter. For the ships of Shittim shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate, and such as do wickedly against the covenant shall be corrupt by flatteries. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. And they that understand among the people shall instruct many. Yet they shall fall by the sword, and by flame, by captivity, and by spoil many days. Now, when they shall fall, they shall be holpen with a little help, but many shall cleave to them with flatteries, and some of them of understanding shall fall to try them, and to purge, and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for a time appointed. This stresses Antiochus Epiphanes stress and attacks on God's worship, the temple, and the law of Moses. Now in verse 31, the abomination that maketh desolate is the desecration of the temple, the pollution, the pollution of the altar by the offering of a soul upon it, the erection of a image of Zeus, Olympus, in the temple itself, and other outrageous things of Antiochus. Now in Matthew chapter 24, it mentions the abomination of desolation. That would become the holy place, a signal for Christians at that time to flee from the city of Jerusalem. The abomination of desolation is associated with the end of the first Israel in the destruction of their nation, their worship, and their status as God's chosen people. And you can also read 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8. Okay? Verse 36. And the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done. Antiochus directed his attack against the true God, not the pagan deities. The lawless one mentioned by Paul is the Antichrist. The indignation be accomplished, mentioned here in the text, is the indignation of God because of his people's continued rebellion. Satan will be loosed a little while, which you can read in Revelation chapter 20. That will accomplish the indignation. God will finally, in the loosing of Satan, permit Adam, in the person of his total remaining posterity, to receive an object lesson in what serving the devil really means. This revelation of the Lord to Daniel concerned what shall happen to God's people in messianic times. Verse 37. Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all. This applied to the Antichrist, who will appear at the end of the age. Verse 38. But in his estate shall he honor the God of forces, and a God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver and with precious stones and pleasant things. Thus shall he do in the most strongholds with a strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain. He will regard no other God, but only war to gain world power. The lawless one is the Antichrist. Verse 40. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships. And he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon. He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape, but he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. And the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. This is a prophecy of the final developments of the Adamic probation on earth. This refers to only the final enemy of the people of God, which is the Antichrist. Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon in verse 41 are the old chief enemies of God's people who will appear again. Verse 44, and I'm going to finish this chapter out. Oh, these ads. Let me move the ads. Okay. Verse 44, but tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. We don't know the end of this evil king, but his success continued until the end. This compared to what Paul wrote in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Now, the glorious holy mountain mentioned here refers to the church. Antiochus met his destruction in the Persian city of Thebes on his return from Persia to Babylon. All right, y'all. Last chapter of the book of Daniel, and then I'm going to close out. Daniel chapter 12. We're going to talk about the Great Tribulation. Verse 1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. Now, where it says at that time, it's referring to the Messianic times. Daniel chapters 10 through 12 are all one prophecy. This part of the prophecy deals with the true Israel of God in the beginning of the Messianic times. This prophecy is separated and its application from the apostate Israel, from the degenerate vine, the hardened secular Israel. After that, Israel was rejected and crucified and crucified the Son of God himself. They lost their status as God's chosen people. That distinction now belongs to the church of the Lord Jesus Christ only. It's what will happen to the church of Christ, not the Jews racially. Now, Matthew chapter 24, it mentions the destruction of Jerusalem and was applied to the end of Jerusalem. Those who will be saved, God's people, are written in the book, who are Christians. The book is the Lamb's book of life. Now we're going to talk about the resurrection. Verse 2, it says, "And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt." Where it says many, here in verse 2 refers to all. You can read Romans chapter 5 on that. The first resurrection is from deadness in sins by hearing and obeying the gospel. Read John chapter 5, verses 25 through 29, and Matthew chapter 27, verse 53. Only the saints were raised on this occasion. Christ approved these prophecies in the New Testament. Verse 3, "And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever." This promise will be fulfilled in the final judgment. Paul's conception of the saints being glorious like the stars is you can read that in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Where it says here in the text, "They that turn many to righteousness," those who convert men to the worship of the true God and to the ways of holy religion. That's what that refers to. Now we're going to get into Daniel's last message, verse 4. "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book. Even to the time of the end shall many shall run to and fro and knowledge shall be increased." Now, where it says shut up the words and seal the book, even to the end of the time, is regarding and protecting the message that it might be available for future generations. Verse 5. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river. And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, "How long shall it be to the end of these wonders?" And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be 4 times and in half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Now, where it says in verse 6, "How long shall it be to the end of these wonders?" This is how long shall it be to the end of the world, the general resurrection of the just and the wicked, and the glorification of the saints of God. The answer is in verse 7. Verse 8, "And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things?" And he said, "Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end." Daniel admitted that he did not understand the words spoken or written down. Christ is the true Israel of God. A lot of prophets, as I mentioned before, didn't understand their own prophecies. Verse 10, "Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Many will obey the gospel and be saved, but the wicked will act wickedly and not understand or comprehend spiritual things. Verse 11, and from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. This 1,290 days is the time between the first and second advents of Jesus Christ, is one possible meaning. The continual burnt offering was taken away forever in the destruction of Jerusalem. Now I'm going to read the last two verses and we will be done. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 and 30 days. But go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. The time periods used are a mystery. Daniel was assured of his salvation, and Jonah. Okay? Well, y'all, that is the end. We finished out Daniel, the book of Daniel. Sorry, I don't know what was going on. It's like the website I usually use when I share my screen reading the scriptures, it just stopped working. So I don't know what happened or what that was about. So, but anyway, we got through part 2. We finished out the book of Daniel. God willing, next time we're going to get back to the book of Romans. And we're just going to keep going from there, Lord willing. I thank you all for listening in, tuning in, and do like, share, subscribe. And if you would like to know when I'm going to go live again, hit the notification bell. So you all have a wonderful evening. Stay in prayer. And until next time, y'all have a good one. Bye.